tonight about family of origin hopefully is pertinent to you. And the second issue is how can we serve families in the body of Christ? And you may be sitting there saying, well, I'm not going to be a counselor. I'm not going to go to school and major in social work or psychology or whatever. And that may be true. But you know what? I think in the future, people are going to, I talk about consumer mentality, people are going to look to the church more and more for these kinds of services. And the days will come when the church can no longer say, well, you've got a marriage problem, we're going to send you over to see Dr. Johnson or Upper Call or the many places that are available. Thank God for those places in this county and in this area. But where the Lord is going to say, church, I want you to work more with troubled people. And that's going to include people with family problems. Because that, to me, is the harvest field today. That's the harvest field for the church. It's people with problems, mental health. Oh, my goodness. You have a church in Lincoln. And the church has traditionally said, we don't know what to do with these people, so we'll ship them off to Haven or some psychiatrist down the road. And that's okay. But the day of referral, of saying we're referring, we're washing our hands of you because we don't know what to do with you, I think it's soon ending. And the church is going to be challenged to say, how can we stick with these people? Schizophrenics have souls. They need ministry. Anxious and depressed need spiritual encouragement. I see them every day. And I draw on people from the church to help them. So the more you can learn about family stuff, mental health stuff, even if you're a lay counseling is going to be the key to the future of counseling in the church. Believe me, I see it. And we're going to be training more and more lay counselors to do the work of ministry. So that's one of the reasons I'm training in these areas tonight. Okay. All right, let's talk about doing our family of origin work now. Is this too loud or how is it? Okay, good. So what can we do? We talked about what the problem is. Now let's talk about some solutions to the problem. And I'm under doing your own family of origin work here in your outline. First one is to be aware of your tendency to recycle. We've talked about that. I think I've enhanced your awareness. The second one is garner insight and understanding. But what does that look like? And is that enough? Psychologists for years have taught that insight into self is the most important insight you can get. Know yourself. Develop insight into what makes me tick as a person. And I looked up insight in the King James Bible, and the word does not appear, at least in my concordances. When God talks about insight, he talks about insight into him, not into us. And right now I'm going to be tackling one of the sacred cows of psychology. Because one of the sacred cows of psychology is learn more about you. But the Bible says, learn about God, and then you'll learn more about you. If you want to understand you, understand yourself first. Because you and I are created in the image of God. And the more we understand him, the more we understand ourselves. The Bible does talk, the King James talks about wisdom and insight. Gain wisdom and insight. Wisdom and knowledge, sorry, not insight. Wisdom and knowledge. So we need wisdom and knowledge about our family of origin. Wisdom to know how to handle it. It also says the knowledge of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So instead of starting with getting insight into you, start with getting insight into God. And the second point about insight would be that often looking into ourselves and examining ourselves is like a deep dive into a pool of problems. Now I could enhance that a little bit more, but I won't. But the Bible says that inside of us is a heart that's deceitfully wicked. deceitful and wicked. So a deep dive into ourselves or insight into ourselves is not a nice, pleasant experience of, oh my goodness, I see these wonderful things about myself. It's more like, oh Lord, please help me. I've got all these issues. So in spite of what the therapist might tell you, a deep dive into yourself is not going to be a nice experience of uncovering all these wonderful gifts. And even if you do uncover all these wonderful gifts, the Bible says that every good gift comes from the Father above. It's not yours. It's His. It begins with Him. So, insight. Where do we start? Well, I think the Bible says two things. Start with insight into God and start with insight into the other people around you that you live with. If you're married, that's a spouse. Peter says, husbands, live with your wife in knowledge or understanding. That means gaining insight into her. Now, nobody needs to tell women to do that because they do it automatically. So God tells us, guys, hey, you need to work at that. He doesn't tell the women, they do it. It's built into you, ladies. Us guys have to work at it. We'll talk about John Cotton stuff in a little while and how we, as guys, tend to be a little bit brain dead in some areas of relationships compared to where your ladies are. I'll get to that later. Insight. So insight into God, insight into your partner. Thirdly, insight into your family origin. What was your family like? What were the patterns? And again, we talked about recycling. How did they treat you growing up? Were you in a child-centered family? Were you put down? Were you built up too much? Ask all those questions about your family origin and go for insight into your family. Okay? So, does that mean that individual insight is not important at all? It doesn't. I would say, look for insight into your patterns. Understand your patterns. Like in a relationship, how am I contributing to a relationship breakdown or a relationship problem? If it's with your spouse, if it's with your kids, if you're working in a leadership position, if it's with the people that you're working with, how am I contributing to the problem in this relationship at home or at work? That's good insight into yourself. All right? So, we go with insight. And then the third thing that we do is take a family of origin journey. Family therapy was born out of therapists who went home determined to do differently than they did when they left. In other words, they went home determined to change the nature of relationships in their home. There's a guy named Murray Bowen, if you ever have a chance to read about him. He pioneered some of the generational pieces of family therapy. And one of the ways he did that was he looked at his family origin and saw, this is how I interact with my parents. If I change this, this, and this, I think I can help to change my family. So it's self-focus in terms of how can I go home and be different. So let's take a look at that a little bit. How can you go home and be a different person and change some of the patterns? First of all, you need to know what the patterns are. Once you identify the patterns, then you can begin to strategize to make things different the next time you go home. For instance, if you're married, I recommend that you get together and talk about next time we visit our family, we're going to do this, this, and this. My wife and I did that all the time when we visited with our families. I'm from northern Michigan, and she was too. We lived out here, so our trip back home was always from here to northern Michigan. And we'd spend 2-3 weeks with them if we could. We had that much vacation time. And we always strategize. When tension begins to build up, here's what we'll do. And we had a plan. So make a plan, develop a strategy. Here's the big one. Be proactive with your family. Be proactive. Most people are passive when it comes to their family. They go home and they're passive participants. They let their family take over. There was a time when I went home and my mother had arranged for something that she wanted me to do in the church that I did not like. I won't tell you the details. I won't embarrass my mom. She's, God rest her soul. But I determined that I was going to face that differently and not just say, okay, Mom, I'll do that because you arranged it. I differentiated from her by saying, I'm going to take a step away from you, Mom. I'm going to fulfill your desires, but it's going to be a little bit different way. Just taking a page out of Jesus' notebook when he said to Mom, no, Mom, I'm not going to do this miracle under your direction. I wasn't planning to do miracles on your own. But it was something Mom wanted me to do. It was an expectation. Loyalty. I wanted to be loyal to my mom, not her feelings. But I had to take a step away from her at that point. So I strategized carefully with my wife in prayer. How do I handle this? You get what I'm saying? Be proactive. Let me give you a principle that, see how this bounces off of you. I think that young adults need to take a piece of the action with their parents onto themselves without controlling their mom and dad. And to be in charge of something. Okay? Now hear that carefully. I'm not saying go home and control your parents. No. It's not more right for you to control them than it is for them to control you. I'm saying take a piece of the action and be in charge. Take charge of that with God's help. He said another way, go home as an adult, not as a child. I ask a lot of my clients, how old do you feel when you're at home? It's a good question to ask yourself. Write that down. How old do you feel when you're around your parents? Do you feel your stated age? Or do you feel like you're still, if you're an adult and a woman, still 14 or 12 or 10? One young woman said to me, not even born yet. Yeah, not born yet. Another one said, when you dropped me off at college, you dropped me off in my stroller and a diaper. Home, stop. How do you feel? Parents, if you're an older person here with adult children, how old do you think your children feel around you? The goal is adult-to-adult relationships. And it means giving a piece of the action over to your kids, or you're taking a piece of the action. Now, there's going to come a time when every young adult in here will have to take over for their parents, likely. I went through that with my dad. The person that took care of me, diapered me, and bathed me, and so on, when I was a baby or child, coddled me when I fell down in my knees and so on, with parents. There came a time when I had to say to them, Mom and Dad, I have to be in charge of you now. And why shouldn't that start a little bit, at least when we're younger? If we go about it in a Christ-like way, begin to develop not a parent-child relationship anymore, but here's the goal, adult-to-adult relationship. Can you stand there with your parents and say, I want to enjoy you as an adult man or woman, walking together and enjoying the wonderful things of the Lord. And you go home with the goal, I'm going to change some of those patterns. Now, here's the key word, patterns, not people. Don't have any illusions that you're going to change your parents. Or if you're a parent, that you're going to change your adult kids. No. It's not about changing people. That's God's work. That's the Holy Spirit's work. Your job is to change patterns, not people. So we attack the troubled patterns in our family, not the troubled people in our family. That makes sense to you? It's a different way to do it. So we're talking about how can you go home and be different. Family origin journey, go home differently. Change your behavior toward your family. Let God rewrite your history. Let God rewrite your history. Well, this is a powerful one. I wish I had all the skills to tell you in a number how to rewrite the narrative of your life. This is one of the tremendous challenges in therapy for me right now, for the field. There's a school of thought called narrative therapy that says, let's help people rewrite their history. That's a huge task. That's a huge task. And there's very few skills that we have to do, I'll be very honest with you. I think the church has more skills at its disposal in this area than psychotherapists do. And I've been searching the scripture for what are you saying about helping people rewrite their history? Well, first of all, I think it's God's work. It's God's work. God has to rewrite the history books for us. It's not something we do on our own. And it also gets into a thing I call reframing. Let me talk about reframing. It's the next point in your outline, I think, but let me get to it right now. It's putting a different framework around the picture of your life. And if we get the time next time, we'll talk more about reframing. It's taking the picture of your life and putting a different framework around it. Or let me go even more to the core. It's taking the picture of your life and changing what that picture looks like. It's putting a new painting in the framework, if you will, with God's help. And it's rewriting the past. Now, again, I can talk more about reframing next week and a little if I get time, but let me give you one example from Scripture. That's Joseph's story. Joseph had allowed God to rewrite the narrative of his life, which was all bad from a fleshly perspective. He was sold as a slave by his brothers, put in a pit to die, practically sold for a price as a slave in Egypt and so on, tossed in jail, wrongly accused, things he didn't do, forgotten in jail. What an opportunity for someone to be bitter. So when Joseph's brothers dropped down to Egypt, everybody would have said, well, Joseph, you have every right to throw these guys in jail and say, you're in there until I decide you're out. Or pull your heels, guys, for the next 6 months. So what if your father misses you or whatever? Bitter, it could have been. It was not. His famous words were, you meant it for my good, but God turned it around. For evil, but God turned it around for my good. You meant it for evil, God turned it around for my good. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a reframe. I'm changing the picture of my life. So when you go back and look at your family, what's the framework that you look at it? Is it through your eyes of flesh and anger, cut off what we talked about earlier, with all the anger and unforgiveness that goes with it? Or is it, no, I'm going to put God's lenses on here. I'm going to see my family of origin through God's lenses. I'm going to change my eyeglasses around, as Joseph did, and see it as God sees it. What a challenge. What a challenge. That's called the reframe. So we begin to rewrite the history of our lives, and then forgiveness comes into that process. We walk in forgiveness toward our parents. And we say, Mom and Dad, I forgive you. Parents hopefully can say, son, daughter, I forgive you. And we walk in that forgiveness with each other. It's marvelous because we started at the cross tonight. We started at the cross. And that's where we end up in these scenarios. We end up at the cross. And we say, let's bring this to the cross where the ground is level. And we know we're all sinners. And we stand there and we mention humility, brokenness. We'll talk about that. That's how we stand before the cross. So we rewrite the history of our lives. Only a start to that. And again, I wish there was much, much more I could give you on that, but it's a wonderful start, and I think it's much more theological than it is psychological. Much more theological than it is psychological. Okay? Be a gleaner. Be a gleaner. How can you separate the wheat from the chaff of your family board? In Old Testament days, like I know about a little bit about the Bible, the way they gleaned the wheat from the chaff was they throw it up in the air, right? And the wind would carry away the straw or whatever, and the wheat, which is heavier, would fall to the ground. That's gleaning. And that's what you do with your family board. You look back and you say, what was good? Well, when we write the history of our family, we always rewrite it in negative terms. No, that's not true. We tend to write it in negative terms. We tend to see all the negative things that mom and dad did wrong, and you messed up, mom and dad did this, but so the gleaning says, what was good in my family origin that I can hold on to? And what do I want to let go of? So we do a little bit of evaluation of your family in that sense. Holding up what's good and letting go like chaff. What is it? Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, everybody with me? Be a gleaner. Parents, not people, I mentioned that. Act first. Oh my goodness, it's a powerful principle. And it's a biblical principle. That's why I'm saying I think the church has more answers to this than psychology does. Psychologists generally say, well, if somebody hurt you, they need to come to you and apologize. You were hurt, Susie, your dad needs to apologize, your mom needs to apologize, your spouse needs to apologize. The Bible says no. Somebody hurt you, go to them. It's just the opposite. Act first. Don't wait for your parents to change, or your family, or your siblings to change. Take that proactive step I was talking about earlier. Act first. Don't wait for them to change or correct. Then move toward that adult-to-adult relationship. I enjoyed that with my father, who lived to be 102. And he lived out here. He was from Michigan. The last 10 years of his life he spent with us, and then out of our home, we went to a nursing home. So about 8-10 years I renewed everything that Dad and I had growing up. It was glorious. And I enjoyed that wonderful adult-to-adult relationship with him, where we walked together as equals. It's gorgeous, just beautiful. I envy that for all of you. And then, consider a family of origin session. Okay. Now, let me give you this principle. I think every leader ought to have a family of origin session. They ought to sit down with their parents and flesh some of this stuff out. Because it's very clear to you tonight, the more you work through your stuff with your family, the clearer you are to be a leader, right? So let's talk about what happens in family of origin therapy. I do this work, it's one of the things that characterize my approach to therapy. Whenever young adults come in to see me, I say, let's plan to have a session with your parents. Eventually they say, what? Let's plan to have a session with your parents. Eventually. And they give me all the reasons why that will never happen. Usually about 25. Sometimes they're right. One of the reasons is mom and dad will never come. That usually is not true. Because usually when parents have a chance to work through things with their adult kids that weren't resolved in the first go-around, they'll take that opportunity. So if the kids are open, usually the parents are. Now, several years ago, I was introduced to the work of a guy named James Framos in your notes. He was a pioneer in intergenerational therapy. He wrote a book. If you want to take a deeper dive into this, his book is called Family of Origin Therapy. Family of Origin Therapy. The a subtitle to it, I'm not sure what it is, but it's James Framo, Family Origin Therapy. He talks about the work that he did. He's deceased now, but he wrote it as he was doing it. He was out in California, and his young adult clients, he would say to them, you know, I'd like to do a weekend seminar or workshop therapy sessions with your parents. And parents would fly all over the U.S. to meet with him and their young adult son or daughter for a weekend. Friday night, all day Saturday. I don't know if you work on Sunday or not. But they probably spend 10, 12, 15 hours of therapy. And what Framo says about that is that 1 hour of family of origin therapy is worth 7 hours of individual counseling. Take that in mind. 1 hour working with the family is worth 7 hours of individual therapy. I second that. I certainly affirm that. I'm going to go off the record a little bit. Is that okay? If it comes to me, that's okay. Okay, but today I met with the family, and mom and dad and adult daughter came. The situation is the mother is very depressed, and I bring in the children whenever I have a depressed situation. I bring in the adult children, older couple, and I work with that couple. I work with that lady individually. And with the daughter there, what was accomplished in that session in a half an hour than all the individual sessions I had. It was just glorious that the daughter ministered to the mom, and the mom was coming out of her depressed shell and talking to her daughter, and talking about ways to get together, go shopping, have coffee. I just sat there. Wow. This is powerful. Powerful. And that takes place. Just so powerful. And those, God, our God's a generational God. And He wants to move in the generations. In the generations. So when you get together with your family, it's a powerful thing that He can do. So let's talk about, and the quote is in there, every leader should have a session with their family of origin. If you're going to do that, let me just quickly run through some things that you can do to prepare. Be ready to forgive. Be ready to forgive. There's a difference between the psychological view of forgiveness and the spiritual view of forgiveness. The psychological view of forgiveness is it's a process that takes time to work through. A spiritual view of forgiveness is it's an event or an act of the will. And the longer I'm in this field, it's another thing I want to flesh out in my writing. I believe that forgiveness is much more an event and an act of the will than it is a process. And I could go into detail with that if you want me to talk with that a little more next week. But let me just give you two examples from the examples I've already given you tonight. The prodigal son and Jacob, who were both in cutoff. Let's do the prodigal son. When the prodigal son came home to his father, it says, first of all, they came to his senses, which is a good thing. He said, I can go home and I can be a servant to my father, and I can be better off than I am here. So he goes home, and the first thing he says to his father, and I'll put it in this framework, Dad, I'm taking a psychological or an emotional approach to forgiveness and restoration. I'm willing to start out slow and make this a process over time. I'm willing to be your servant. I'm willing to sleep in the barn. I'm willing to do whatever you want me to. Let's do this step by step by step. That's the emotional or psychological. I'm not bad-mouthing psychology here, saying that. But if you don't like the word psychological approach, use the word emotional approach. Okay? We got to work through our emotions before we can forgive. That's baloney. Absolutely baloney. Because the spiritual approach says, let's forgive and then we'll work through the emotions. And the spiritual approach says, when you forgive, a lot of the emotions are brought right to the cross and you don't have as many bad emotions anymore. Because they're brought to the cross. So the Father was saying, no, I'm not going to use this emotional approach to forgiveness with you. I'm not going to use, if you will, the psychological approach. I'm going to use the spiritual approach. Son, I've forgiven you. I've forgiven you. I restore you immediately as my son. And the spiritual approach to forgiveness is immediate restoration. It's not, let's work 25 sessions in therapy and then we'll work it all through. Let's not, you don't have to dig out all the past. Yeah, we do need to deal with the past, but it needs to be brought to the cross. It does need some processing after forgiveness. Forgiveness comes first, then we process if we need to. Interestingly enough, Jacob, I think, also had a psychological approach to forgiveness. He talked to his brother about, let's divide all to his family, let's divide them in teams, and he expected his brother to say, well, you got to serve me for a while, da-da-da-da-da. Esau, rough old Esau, threatening to kill his brother, said, I forgive you. They hugged, they embraced, they went home and ministered to their day. Psychological way, spiritual way. Which way are we going to choose? Again, I could unpack that for you a little more, but think about forgiveness. What does it look like? And generally it says forgiveness is an act of the will that happens at a given point in time. And then we can process from the standpoint of we're forgiven rather than we need to talk for a long time about forgiveness. Then we'll arrive at that magical point of forgiveness after we talk it all through. Does that make any sense to you guys? Am I coming through to you? Okay. So then there's forgiveness. Be ready to forgive. Move from stories to heart-to-heart relationship. Heart-to-heart feeling, the Bible says in Malachi 4:6, turn the hearts of the fathers to the children's hearts to the fathers. Be aware of the family blessing. In family therapy, I always turn to a family blessing. I have the parents bless their children. And so on, okay? In those sessions, there's no bashing allowed. It's not, you come here today to bash your parents. That's fine, we'll let you do that. Okay. Now, I'm about ready to go to let me see if there's anything I missed that I want to cover here. About going home differently. So I said plan ahead, use your voice. Don't act out of your emotional system would be another good one here when you do this work with your family. Okay. What questions do you have about? That's all I have to say on family origin. What questions do you have before we go on to again?
The idea of rewriting history, I think I got it when you started talking about the reframing it, and but you can't change somebody's history. I mean, their history is history, but yeah, just maybe explain that rewriting history.
Well, how many books about history have you read that give a different twist on the same situation? You can read a book of that maybe a biblical scholar has read, looking at the framework of the scriptures, or a book that an atheist has read about history, looking at it through an entirely different lens. So what I'm saying is we tend to rewrite history based on kind of what we want as the outcome to that, how we want to twist it. So history is history, yes, but it's very much in the eye of the beholder. I don't know if you have brothers and sisters, but if I got your family together and said, how did you all proceed how your siblings, how did you all perceive your family? Chances are, if you have 5 siblings, I get 5 interpretations. Now that's because people think differently, but they also interpret, they also have a different experience. People have a different experience with mom and dad. So the idea here is it's how you see it that needs to change. Because you're right, it can't change, and that's where families get caught up. They want mom and dad, young adults want mom and dad to see it through their lenses. But mom and dad have a different lenses. So mom and dad have to look at it through the standpoint of the young adult's lens, and the young adult needs to look at it through the standpoint of the parents' lens, and see how it was different. And the other thing is, counseling is never a court. It's never about a court. People come into me and they think I'm a judge. So they tell me, my parents did all this stuff wrong. My spouse is all messed up. She's doing all this stuff to other kids. I'm not your judge. I'm your therapist. I want you to work this out with her. I'm not here to side with you and say, you're right. Your wife is awful. She screwed up your life. Your husband is terrible. He screwed up your life. No. You follow what I'm saying? So they want me to function as judge and jury over them. The young adult is going to say, you're right, kid. Your parents were terrible. And vice versa, the parents have their own view. So it's each of them putting on God's lenses. And let's look at the past through a different frame. Hope that helps you. Other questions? Okay, let's go with identity. The leader's identity. And I have a handout for you there. I want to look at it with you. You see that my folder. And I've already hinted at this a little bit. It's called differentiation. And it's a person's ability to separate intrapersonal and interpersonal distress. And let me summarize that for you. It's our ability to separate thoughts from feelings. Now, even in doing generational work, usually we approach that from an emotional point of view. There's anger, there's frustration that we're feeling. So people are all fused around emotion, okay? And my job is to move people out of their emotional system into their spiritual system. Because if they live on an emotional plane, I don't have to explain it to you what emotions do. They lead to impulsive actions. And most of the people I've seen counseling are living on an emotional realm, not a spiritual realm. I don't see people who are living on a spiritual realm. Why? You can guess. They don't need to come and see me, right? Now, I'm not saying that everybody that comes to see me is not living on a spiritual realm. Don't get me wrong. But I say that's where we get hung up. On the emotional realm of things. So we're helping people differentiate inside of themselves because they're fused to their feelings. They're operating by their feelings, and to balance their feelings out with their thoughts and their spirituality. Does that make sense? Let's look at Jesus. Jesus is a perfect combination of in touch with emotions. He cried. He got angry. His thoughts were on the Father. And he and the Father were one in spirit. Jesus was a totally well differentiated person. In my opinion, the best who ever lived. Now, psychologists and so on have also put this differentiation thing on a scale. And you see that scale there, the 2 arrows? On the one side of that, if you want to write emotions, say on the left side, it's okay, that needs to be the other way around, I'm sorry. This is backwards. Write emotions on the right side. The less differentiated person is tied into his or her emotions. And the more differentiated person on the left side is tied into his or her cognitive structure, thoughts, or spirit. Now, psychologists are going to tell you thoughts, okay? Psychologists are going to write thoughts in there, secular psychologists. I'm going to say spirit, because I want to activate the spirit man or woman in my clients. I want to get that going. Now, on the right-hand side, left side, or least side, these people are dominated by their feelings. They live by their feelings, they're controlled by their feelings. If they're a bundle of emotions, and then if they totally live by their feelings, they're likely in some kind of institution. Because you can't live that way in society, you have to be in a protected place. They're normally in prison or a sheltered environment of some kind. Moving all the way toward the other side, the people who wrote this would say no one has come up to the end of the arrow to be, let's say, a 10. I would say except Jesus. But on that side, people have balanced out the emotions with their cognitive structure and their spirit. So they're balanced within. Now, am I going too fast for you all? Fasten your seatbelts, sorry, 8:30. When you're balanced within, you can be balanced without. If you're not balanced within, you're going to relate everybody on your emotions. Okay? Say it again. If you're not balanced within, you're going to relate by your emotional structure. When you are balanced within, you're going to relate from your spirit, which is by far the best way to relate. So on the one hand, you've got a totally subjective person who's dictated, life is dictated by emotions. On the other hand, you've got a person who is much more objective, can be in touch with his or her emotions, thoughts, and spirit, and balance those three. And I submit to you that was Jesus, personification.
So there's no side to this where someone is too objective, where they lack emotional depth or empathy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep, you can get so objective that you're out of touch with your emotions. Yes. You can even be so spiritual that you're not in touch with the other parts of your being. You know people like that. You know, they can quote you scriptures, but it doesn't. It's not. It's in their head. It's not in their heart. They're cognitive. They're not living it out. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can be so objective and cognitive that you're not in touch with your feelings. Absolutely. But here again, a differentiated person is in touch with his or her feelings, his or her cognitive structure, or her mind and thoughts, and his or her spirit. And this balance between those three. Does that make sense? So that's differentiation. So a well-differentiated person, I won't go through all these with you, but let me just go on the one that started there. Can clearly step back from the pain to recognize their own responsibility and that of the other, identify a respectful way to move forward. Another way to say it is, they know where their skin ends and someone else's begins. The opposite, in our identity, the opposite of differentiation is what we call fusion. Now, fusion is when I'm controlled by someone else. Someone else is in charge of me. I have lost my identity in that person. And what they do or say totally controls me. I work with couples where a major life decision comes up and the wife says, honey, I think you ought to do this. Or the husband says, honey, I think you ought to do this to the wife. And they totally operate on what their spouse says rather than talking about that together, talking to the Lord about it. That person is fused to his or her spouse. And that is not in the flesh, that's fusion. In counseling, sometimes I talk with couples about fusion. I had one guy say to me, my wife is my idol. Well, I have more than one facet. My wife is my idol. That's fusion. Whatever she says, I do. I ask another guy, what are your strengths? He says, my wife says I'm frugal. Okay, confused. What's your main goal in marriage? To make my wife happy. Doesn't that sound good? Be careful. There's fusion in that. There can be. Am I saying you should try to make your wife happy? Of course not. I don't want all you ladies throwing rotten eggs at me. But I think any wife would settle for a spiritual leader over someone that's just in it to make her happy. Someone who's willing to take a stand, say, I have an identity, here I stand, this is what I feel. Here's what I sense from the Lord on this, rather than anything you say here. Anything to make you happy here. Get the idea of fusion. So, the non-differentiated self will fuse into someone else. And these people will have miserable marriages, and they don't make good leaders. Because they aren't able to take a stand and say, this is what I'm sensing in my heart or in my spirit or spiritually, this is what I'm sensing from the Lord. This is my stand on this. This is my opinion on this. Now, does that mean you shouldn't talk to other people and get input from them? Of course not. Of course not. I'm a team man. I really believe by team management and team input. But I know sometimes at the end of the day, I have to step aside and get everybody's input and opinion, and I have to make that final decision. And if I'm fused with my staff, I'm just going to go along with what they think rather than what I'm sensing from the Lord. Are you getting the picture of fusion? And how differentiation is different? Jesus refused to fuse. He was that differentiated self. Everybody thought he ought to do things differently. He was the ultimate non-people pleaser. The effective leader is an ultimate non-people pleaser. He or she can say, this is where I stand on this issue, even if it's unpopular. Yeah. So, fusion, what it is, how it hinders identity. How God expressed his identity. God expressed his identity in a certain interesting way. Does anybody remember what that looked like? When that happened in the scriptures? What did God say about himself?
I am who I am.
Good job. When Moses said to the Lord, how do I know it? How do I tell the people back there who sent me? God said, I am. I am. A fascinating statement. I am is always a statement about identity. So when you're working with someone who's depressed or anxious, listen for their language. They will often say things like, I am a depressed person. I am an anxious person. They're really telling you that anxiety and depression is their identity. I am a failure. Their identity is, I'm a failure. Anytime we say, I am this or that, like God, we're expressing a sense of who we are, or our identity. I am a child of God. That's a positive statement about our identity. If you read the book of Ephesians, there's like, I did this research just the other night, and in the first 7 verses of Ephesians, there's 6 or 7 statements of identity right in there. And you can put an I am with every one of them. I am adopted by God the Father. I am washed in the blood of the Lamb. I am. So then Jesus comes along and people say, who are you anyway? Jesus says, I am. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd. So Jesus begins to identify himself in the I am words, the same words God used to identify himself. back in the Old Testament. Interesting stuff. Yeah. Very few people got it, though. But you know what? Peter was one of the people who got it. Stumbling, bumbling Peter, who denied Jesus. But when Jesus said to him, Peter, do you know who I am? He said, yeah, God. Jesus, I know who you are. You're the Christ, the Son of the living God. Wow. Peter got it. But what about your identity? What are you saying about yourself? How do you label yourself? If you tend to be anxious or depressed, or the people you relate to and will help. You want to go to, rather than I am depressed, anxious, depression and anxiety is trying to grab a hold of me, it's trying to get a stronghold on me, but that's not who I am. It's not who I am. I am a child of God. I am a person of peace and joy. I am who God says I am, not who my depression and anxiety says I am. So there's power in the I am name. And it was the I am name of God that delivered the people of Israel from the hand of Pharaoh. Be aware of the cognitive piece of identity. What self-talk are you giving yourself? What are you telling yourself about your identity? I am a failure, and da-da-da. Identity is not about, it's about who we are, not what we do. Almost everybody you ask, tell me about yourself. In a social setting or whatever, and I get this, I understand this. The first thing you're going to say is, I'm Dr. Johnson, I'm a counselor. I introduce myself by what I do. Most of you do the same. But identity is much more than what you do. It's about who you are. So when God talked about I am, he didn't say, I am the God who created the world and created all the animals and created men and women and put life on this earth. He didn't talk about what he did, he talked about who he was, who he is. Let me give you the word, it's essence. Essence. When I went to seminary, I learned an interesting Hebrew word for that, I don't remember. I can't give it to you, but you want to do the research, interesting. The essence of who God is, the essence of who we are. That's our identity. And it's right at the core of your being. It's not the kind of work you do, it's not that you're a housewife or even a mother. That's an important identity, absolutely. But it's not if you're a plumber or a pastor or a carpenter. It's not what you do all day long to earn a living. It's who you are at the core of your being. That's your identity. It's right where God lives inside of you. The I am lives inside of you. It gives you strength, it gives you grace. It gives you encouragement to live out every day. That's the I am name of God. And we take it with us wherever we go. We're talking about identity, the leader's identity. There's two types of leadership. One is task-oriented and the other is people-oriented. You're probably aware of this, but every organization needs two kinds of leadership to be effective. One is task orientation. That's people who are saying, let's get the job done. Every church needs that. Deacons or elders or leaders who are saying, you know, there's a job to be done in the church. I know if you're working on your HVAC or whatever. Well, the task leaders are going to be the ones that are out there saying, let's get the money raised for that. Let's get a new air conditioner or heating system, whatever, in our church. Others are going to come along and say, yeah, that's important, but we also need to take time to get to know one another. So you have the task leaders and the social emotional leaders. In almost every marriage, you have one or the other. Well, you both. Normally, the wife is the social emotional leader, and the husband is more the task-oriented leader. Now, whenever I say that, people look at me and they say, no, it's not that way in our marriage. I'd say my research shows that probably 20% of the couples are different, where the husband is the social emotional leader, and the wife is the task-oriented leader. It's all right. I'm not saying that's wrong. As long as you have some of both. A car needs a brake and an accelerator. If it doesn't have an accelerator, it never goes anywhere. If it doesn't have a brake, it never stops. So you need that buffer system in marriage. You also need that buffer system in your leadership teams as leaders. You need people who are socially, emotionally nurturing, thinking about that. Let's think about the people in our congregation and their needs. You also need people who are willing to run with the task and say, let's get the job done. Both of those are essential. All right. God uses relationship to shape our identity. Iron sharpens iron. We develop our identity in relationships, in the church, in marriage, and so on. God has ordained that identity is shaped in relationships. Identity is a central factor in anxiety and depression. The studies I've done, I'm working on a book on depression. I'm convinced that the core issue in anxiety and depression is really identity, because people have lost their way in terms of who they are. So what I'm talking about here tonight is very, very straightforward. If you're ministering to anybody that's anxious or depressed, they have holes in their identity, I'm sure. Look for that. Help them plumb those holes. And I'll be writing about that in the book I'm working on. Let's close with different kinds of intelligence. Over the years, psychologists have measured intelligence primarily one way, and that's been IQ. If you've taken Psych 101 or in high school or college, or if you ever had an IQ test, most of you have, I'm sure, what that does is figure out how good your brain is working. It's really a measure of brain power. It's saying how well is your brain able to figure things out, to solve problems, to put a puzzle together, to put the pieces together into a coherent whole. That's mental intelligence is called IQ. Emotional intelligence is coming on like gangbusters. There's books out there on emotional intelligence, and Gottman will say, I'm going to introduce him next week, Gottman will say that emotional intelligence is the essence of marriage. Emotional intelligence is the essence of being a good leader. Let me tell you what that is. That means being in touch with your feelings, but not letting them dictate your behavior. I think I've been very clear with that tonight. Being in touch with your feelings, but not letting them dictate your behavior. Being able to express a full range of emotion, like Jesus did. Jesus got angry, Jesus cried, Jesus got frustrated. I think Jesus laughed. There's not much about that in Scripture, but I guess Jesus had a good sense of humor. He was able to use a lot of different emotions. So the ability to express a broad range of feelings and to deal with a broad range of feelings is emotional intelligence. Very popular today in the counseling field, and you can Google it and find there's books written by Christian authors today on emotional intelligence. Very popular topic. What we haven't talked much about is relational intelligence and spiritual intelligence. So in just a couple minutes we have left, I'm going to tackle that. Relational intelligence to me means, first of all, the ability to give and receive love. To give and receive love. To be in a relationship where I can both give to my wife, my partner, my fellow workers, my friends in the church, and receive that from them. There's a lot of people who are willing to give, but they can't. Yeah, give, but they can't receive. They don't know how to receive. They need to be taught to receive. Don't compliment me, but I'll compliment you, and it's all right to stop with that. No, it needs to go both ways. The other part of relational intelligence is to be servant. That's a biblical term that, of leadership. Your book talks about that, learning to be a servant. So we need to know a lot more about relational intelligence. Very little written about that. You don't hear about it. I'm saying let's talk more about relational intelligence in the church and in the counseling field. And finally, there's spiritual intelligence. Nobody talks about that one either. What is spiritual intelligence? To me, it's the ability to get to know God, to experience Him on the deep and intimate level. To know God, to experience Him. To know God, to experience Him. And to enjoy life in His kingdom. To know what it's like to live in His kingdom. Now, let me close with this observation. I think, to me, there's two things. I think the Bible is written for two purposes. This is me. I think the one purpose for the Bible is to introduce us to the kingdom of God and to get us into the kingdom of God. Okay? That's through the cross, and that's through Christ. I think all the rest of the Bible is to teach us how to live once we're in God's kingdom. That's mostly what the Bible is about. Jesus came to show us how to live. Paul wrote all the epistles to teach us how to live. The Old Testament writers wrote the laws given from God to teach us how to live. So the Bible is two things. It introduces us to the kingdom spiritually. It tells us how to live when we get in there. All right. So this is about the leaders idea. We're differentiated. We don't live by feelings, but we're in touch with them. We balance the feelings, cognitive, and spiritual system. And we live that out with others. We don't live out our emotions with others. We are emotional creatures, but we don't live by our emotions with others. We balance our emotions, our cognitive, and our spiritual pieces in the way we live as well. It's not about what we do, it's about who we are. And then we develop a full range of intelligence inside of us as a fully grounded Christian man or woman living in the kingdom of God. Okay. Next time I'm with you, I want to talk about Gottman stuff. We'll use this outline a little bit. And then I have an assignment for you, some homework to do. Here's your homework. I know you have a book to read too, but I want you to study 1 Kings 18 and 19 about Elijah. And one of the things I'm going to talk about next week is, anybody here of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Is that familiar statement? Please raise your hand if you heard it. Thank you. Oh, 2 or 3 of you? Okay. Watch for God's ladder of needs in that. I'm going to tell you about God's ladder of needs. My ministry to Elijah. Then read the accounts of Jesus and the woman at the well in John 4, and Jesus with Peter in John 21. And then we're going to talk about the leader as a crisis intervener. Go to Acts 16 and Acts 27. If I have those right, it should be, you can make a note. Sometimes I hit the wrong keys on my computer. So it should be about Paul in Philippian jail and Paul shipwreck. Paul shipwreck. Those are the contexts. Any last minute questions? I know it's time to go, but I don't want to miss any questions you might have. Real quickly, popcorn. What did you get out of tonight? What does this mean? What does this mean to you? Good job.
What did he say? What did he say?
He said the importance of family. Thank you, Shannon, right? I got it. What else did you all learn?
Dangers of fusion.
Thank you. Dangers of fusion. We'll repeat for the TV. None of you are going to get fused, right?
Just like how you're intertwining the spiritual
that's what I'm about, yeah. Thank you so much.
The dangers of recycling.
Family origin recycling, thank you, yes, yes. Okay. All right, I'll have my folks with me next week as well. If you want to think about getting one of those, if you're interested in counseling, it'll be a great read for you. Yeah. And I'll bring some brochures for our ministry next week too. I forgot to bring those this week, so. Tuesday night, we'll do it again, right?
Right.
That's
I hope we're letting this stuff sink in and act who we are, because if that Anderson think about skills and those kinds of things, that this is hugely impactful for how